You cannot hold water in a clenched fist. The tighter you grip, the faster it slips through your fingers. And yet we spend so much of our lives gripping, trying to hold on to moments that are already passing, trying to control outcomes we were never meant to control. The breath knows something we have forgotten. It comes, it goes, and it never asks for permission. It never fights against the rhythm of its own nature. And in this simple act of breathing, there is a teaching so profound that if we truly understood it, our entire relationship with life would transform. We talk about acceptance as if it is something we must achieve, something we must work toward with great effort. We say, I need to accept this, as if acceptance is a mountain we must climb or a battle we must win. But what if acceptance is not an achievement at all? What if it is simply a return to the most natural state of being? The breath does not try to be accepted. It simply is. It enters your body without asking if you are ready. It leaves without waiting for your approval. And in between the inhale and the exhale, there is a tiny pause, a moment of perfect stillness where nothing is being held and nothing is being pushed away. This is what the breath can teach us about acceptance. It shows us that life itself is designed to move, to flow, to change. And when we resist that flow, when we try to freeze a moment or stop a feeling from arriving, we create suffering. Not because life is cruel, but because we are working against the very nature of existence. The breath never resists. It accepts the body as it is in this moment. It accepts the temperature of the air, the quality of the atmosphere, the state of the lungs. It does not wait for conditions to be perfect. It simply breathes. Take a slow breath now. Feel the air as it enters your nostrils, cool and quiet. Feel how your chest expands without you commanding it to expand. Feel how your body knows exactly what to do without your mind interfering. This is acceptance in its purest form. It is not passive. It is not giving up. It is intelligent surrender. It is the wisdom of knowing what you can control and what you cannot. The breath does not control the air. It receives it. And in receiving, it sustains life. There is an old story about a farmer whose horse ran away. His neighbors came to him and said, "What terrible luck." The farmer simply replied, "Maybe." The next day, the horse returned, bringing with it 3 wild horses. The neighbors came again and said, "What wonderful luck." The farmer replied, "Maybe." The following day, the farmer's son tried to ride one of the wild horses and broke his leg. The neighbors came and said, "What terrible luck." The farmer replied, "Maybe." A week later, soldiers came to the village to draft young men into the army, but the farmer's son was spared because of his broken leg. The neighbors came and said, "What wonderful luck," and the farmer, once again, simply said, "Maybe." This story is not about being indifferent or detached. It is about understanding that life is always breathing. Events come, events go, feelings rise, feelings fall. And in the midst of this constant movement, we have a choice. We can clench our fists and try to hold on to the good moments and push away the difficult ones. Or we can learn to breathe with life, to accept each moment as it arrives, knowing that it will pass just as surely as the breath passes through the body. When we speak of acceptance, we are not speaking of resignation. We are speaking of a deep, embodied understanding that reality is what it is in this moment, and no amount of mental resistance will change that fact. The breath teaches this every single time it moves through you. You cannot breathe yesterday's air. You cannot inhale tomorrow's oxygen. You can only breathe now. And when you are truly breathing, when you are fully present with the sensation of air moving in and out of your body, there is no room for argument with reality. There is only the simple truth of this moment. But we are trained to argue. We are trained to say, "This should not be happening," or "I should feel differently," or "Things should be better by now." These thoughts are like trying to inhale while simultaneously pushing the air away. They create a kind of internal suffocation, a tightness in the chest, a heaviness in the mind. And the more we think these thoughts, the more we believe that something is fundamentally wrong, not just with the situation, but with us. The breath never judges itself. It never says, "I should be deeper," or "I should be slower," or "I am not good enough." It simply breathes according to what the body needs in this moment. When you are running, the breath quickens. When you are resting, the breath slows. It adapts without complaint. It accepts the conditions it is given and responds with perfect intelligence. This is the kind of acceptance we are learning. Not the acceptance that says, I will tolerate this until it changes, but the acceptance that says, this is what is true right now, and I will meet it fully. Notice your breath again. Notice how it has been breathing you this entire time, even while you were reading these words, even while your mind was somewhere else. It has been accepting every moment, every shift, every tiny change in your body without pause. It has never stopped working on your behalf. It has never given up on you, and it asks for nothing in return, except that you do not interfere with its natural rhythm. There is a certain kind of peace that comes when we stop interfering, when we stop trying to manage every outcome, control every feeling, perfect every moment. This peace is not dramatic. It does not announce itself with fanfare. It is quiet, like the pause between breaths. It is the feeling of your shoulders dropping, your jaw softening, your mind releasing its grip on the story it has been telling. It is the feeling of coming home to yourself, not as you wish you were, but as you are. Acceptance is not about approving of everything that happens. It is not about pretending that pain does not hurt or that loss does not ache. The breath does not deny discomfort. When you are ill, the breath may become shallow and labored. When you are anxious, the breath may quicken and tighten. But it never stops breathing. It continues to move, to adapt, to sustain you even in the midst of difficulty. This is the teaching. Keep breathing, keep moving, keep meeting life as it is, not as you wish it were. We often confuse acceptance with approval. We think that to accept something means we must like it or agree with it, but the breath shows us otherwise. You do not have to enjoy every breath to benefit from it. You do not have to find meaning in every inhale to receive its nourishment. You simply breathe, and in breathing, you continue. This is the essence of resilience. Not the refusal to feel pain, but the willingness to feel it and keep breathing anyway. There was a time in my own life when I believed that acceptance meant weakness. I thought that if I accepted my circumstances, I was giving up, surrendering to a life I did not want. I held my breath, metaphorically speaking, waiting for things to change before I allowed myself to relax. But the more I held on, the more exhausted I became. And then one day, in a moment of complete depletion, I simply let go. I stopped arguing with what was. I stopped demanding that life look different. And in that moment of release, I felt my breath return, deep, full, unrestricted. I realized that I had been suffocating myself, not because of my circumstances, but because of my resistance to them. This is what the breath teaches us about acceptance. It teaches us that we can meet life fully without being destroyed by it. We can feel our feelings without being consumed by them. We can acknowledge our pain without letting it define us. The breath moves through joy and sorrow with the same steady rhythm. It does not cling to pleasant sensations or reject unpleasant ones. It simply continues, breath after breath, moment after moment, teaching us that we are capable of so much more than we realize. Breathe now, slowly. Notice the air entering your body. Notice the brief pause at the top of the inhale. Notice the release of the exhale. Notice the space at the bottom before the next breath begins. In these pauses, there is acceptance. In the space between effort and release, there is peace. You do not have to force it. You do not have to earn it. It is already here, woven into the very fabric of your existence. When we learn to breathe with life, instead of against it, something shifts. We begin to see that much of our suffering comes not from the events themselves, but from our relationship with those events. We suffer when we believe things should be different than they are. We suffer when we cling to what is leaving, or push away what is arriving. We suffer when we forget that we are not separate from the flow of life, but part of it. The breath reminds us. It says, you are alive, you are here, you are breathing. This is enough. Acceptance does not mean we stop growing or striving or working toward change. It means we stop waging war with the present moment. It means we stop waiting for life to be perfect before we allow ourselves to be at peace. The breath does not wait for perfect conditions. It breathes in polluted air, in thin mountain air, in humid jungle air, in cold winter air. It adapts, it continues, it accepts what is and works with it rather than against it. Think of a river. It flows over rocks, around bends, through valleys and gorges. It does not stop to argue with the landscape. It does not demand that the rocks move or the banks widen. It simply flows, finding its way, accepting the terrain, carving its path with patience and persistence. This is the way of acceptance. It is fluid, not rigid. It is responsive, not reactive. It is powerful, not because it forces its way, but because it yields and continues. There is a difference between acceptance and passivity. Passivity is disconnection, a numbing out, a refusal to engage. Acceptance is full engagement. It is meeting reality with clear eyes and an open heart. It is saying, I see what is happening. I feel what I feel. And I will respond from a place of presence rather than panic. The breath models this for us every moment. It responds to the body's needs without panic. It adjusts, it flows, it sustains. In this very moment, as you read these words, your breath is teaching you. It is showing you that you are capable of acceptance, that you already know how to let go, that you have been practicing surrender every moment of your life without even realizing it. Each exhale is a letting go. Each inhale is a welcoming, and in between, there is space, there is stillness, there is peace. What would your life look like if you trusted the breath? If you allowed yourself to move through your days with the same natural rhythm, the same ease, the same acceptance of what is? What would it feel like to stop resisting your feelings, your circumstances, your humanness? What would it feel like to simply breathe through the hard moments, knowing that they will pass, just as every breath passes? This is not a philosophy to understand intellectually. It is a practice to embody. It begins with the breath. It begins with noticing. It begins with the willingness to feel what you feel without the need to change it immediately. It begins with the simple act of breathing and saying to yourself, this is what is true right now. I accept this moment as it is, not because you approve of it, but because it is real. The breath is always here, always available, always teaching. When you are overwhelmed, return to the breath. When you are lost in thought, return to the breath. When you are gripping too tightly to an outcome, return to the breath. It will remind you that life is movement, that change is constant, that you are not meant to hold everything together by force of will. You are meant to flow, to breathe, to accept what comes and let go of what leaves. There is a kind of grace in this, a kind of freedom. When we stop demanding that life look a certain way, we open ourselves to the fullness of what is actually here. We stop missing our lives because we are too busy wishing they were different. We stop postponing our peace until conditions improve. We realize that peace is not found in perfect circumstances. It is found in perfect presence. And perfect presence begins with the breath. So take one more breath now, a deep one. Feel it filling your lungs, expanding your chest, nourishing every cell. Feel the pause, and then feel the release, the letting go, the surrender. Notice how easy it is. Notice how natural. Notice how your body has been doing this your entire life, teaching you, moment by moment, breath by breath, that acceptance is not something you must learn. It is something you must remember. This is the teaching. This is the path, not away from life, but into it. Not around pain, but through it. Not above our humanness, but deep within it. The breath is the bridge. It connects us to the present moment, to our bodies, to the truth of what is. And when we learn to trust it, when we learn to breathe with life instead of against it, we discover that we have always had everything we need to meet this moment with grace. Today, may you breathe deeply and trust the wisdom of your own acceptance.